Today we'll take up two related passages which are related not only to each other but also to the passages which we discussed last month. The first one is entitled Sri Aurobindo and Religion. And the mother says, "You only have to read all that Sri Aurobindo has written to know that it is impossible to base a religion on his works, because he presents each problem, each question in all its aspects, showing the truth contained in each way of seeing things. And he explains that in order to attain the truth, you must realize a synthesis which goes beyond all mental notions and emerge into a transcendence beyond thought." When we speak of Sri Aurobindo, there can be no question of a teaching, nor even of a revelation, but of an action from the Supreme. No religion can be founded on that. But men are so foolish that they can change anything into a religion. So great is their need of a fixed framework for their narrow thought and limited action. They do not feel secure unless they can assert this is true and that is not. But such an assertion becomes impossible for anyone who has read and understood what Sri Aurobindo has written. Sri Aurobindo was a spiritual master, and last month we saw that after the spiritual masters achieve their realization, the realization of the absolute reality in the universe and beyond, they have followed a number of alternative routes. One is to do nothing on the surface after that, which means remain in seclusion. Doesn't mean that their realization has been of use only to them and not to the rest of the world, because even their presence in this world sends possibly some subtle positive vibrations which could affect the entire universe in a positive manner. There has been another category who have ended up describing their spiritual experiences, and that is how we got the Upanishads. Then there have been seers and spiritual masters who have written down in some detail at least some aspects of the methods, processes, the type of life that helped them in their path, on their quest, and the details of these techniques and methods have become our textbooks of yoga. And there have been some seers who have instead chosen to simplify what they have realized, put it once again in mental terms, and give in clear-cut terms to people what they should do and what they should not do in order to live a spiritually uplifting life. And these people have turned thereby into founders of different religions. Now, what is it that Sri Aurobindo has done? What Sri Aurobindo has done is something unique. He did not go into oblivion or seclusion. He continued to engage himself with the world in his own way. He has given us a description of his experiences in his masterpieces such as The Life Divine and Savitri. And he has also given a very broad and flexible and all-inclusive, comprehensive path of yoga. And but one thing which he has not done is to establish a new religion, is to become the founder of a new religion. That is something which he has not only not done, he did not want to do it. And what the mother says is something which is even more emphatic, that on the basis of his teachings, a new religion cannot be established. Not only that he has not done it or did not want to do it, it cannot be done. And then she goes on to explain a little why it cannot be done. You only have to read all that Sri Aurobindo has written to know that it is impossible to base a religion on his works. Because, why is it impossible to base a religion on his works? Because he presents each problem, each question in all its aspects, showing the truth contained in each way of seeing things, and he explains that in order to attain the truth, you must realize a synthesis which goes beyond all mental notions and emerge into a transcendence beyond thought. Now, if you read any of Sri Aurobindo's works, you find that he has discussed every issue from every possible angle. From the point of view of what he thinks is right, or what he knows is right, and also from the point of view of his critics. And the result is that he has examined every issue from several angles, and not only has he given arguments in favor of what he thinks or what he knows is right, but has in fact also given arguments, and sometimes he's gone to great lengths to try and show why some of his critics might think otherwise. So much so that sometimes if you are not very attentive and you go on reading what he has written, you start suspecting, no, this can't be Sri Aurobindo. This doesn't match with his general philosophy. But actually what he is doing is, he is trying to give us the way his critics think, what sort of reasons they have, and he gives those reasons also so thoroughly and in such a sympathetic way. He has such a sympathetic approach even to people who might oppose him, that sometimes you forget that, no, this can't be Sri Aurobindo. And you forget that actually it is not Sri Aurobindo, because then you have to wait a while, go on further, and then he tells you why he still does not agree. In spite of all these reasons supporting his critics, why he still has a different point of view. So that is his approach. In contrast, what do you find in religions? A religion is founded on one particular point of view. It is not based on this sort of a thing, of trying to look at things from every possible angle and then still leaving it to the reader to decide what he thinks is right. Sometimes, Sri Aurobindo does not claim to be the last word. Very often, in spite of this extremely thorough analysis, which probably cannot be improved upon, in spite of that, he does not give the impression that he is trying to tell us that he has said the last word. And that is something which, that is not the type of teaching on which one can establish a religion. That's what the mother is saying. Recently, I got an email from a visitor who was with us for 3 or 4 months, and after she left, she took with her a copy of the Life Divine. And then I got an email from her recently, and she says that as I read the Life Divine, there are tears in my eyes so often, and I feel so humbled. I realize I never knew how to think. Because, we all take great pride in our capacity to think and reason. Now, here is something, I never thought I knew how to reason. And this is a girl who already had done a master's in religious studies. Now, this is Sri Aurobindo. And therefore, you cannot establish a religion on this sort of a comprehensive, all-inclusive approach, which has room for all points of view, and which will ultimately take us to the truth and beyond, and yet not claim to be the last word. You only have to read all that Sri Aurobindo has written to know that it is impossible to base a religion on his works, because he presents each problem, each question in all its aspects, showing the truth contained in each way of seeing things, and he explains that in order to attain the truth, you must realize a synthesis which goes beyond all mental notions and emerge into a transcendence beyond thought. So he takes us to a world, he transports us to a world which goes beyond thought. Which means he saw the truth, he's tried to express it as thoroughly as possible from his point of view, from everybody else's point of view, and then he transports us to a world which goes beyond thought. On the other hand, what does a person who has tried to establish a religion do? He has been to that world beyond, and then he comes back to the world of thought and tries to put it in ordinary mental language, something which everybody will understand in clear terms, what is to be done and what is not to be done. Which means that instead of trying to take the followers beyond thought, in fact, he comes back to thought, assuming that most of the followers will not be able to go beyond the level of thought. So it's an attempt at simplification. Something like, a PhD trying to go to a primary class to teach. Now, he has to come down to the level of the students if the students have to make any headway, if the students have to make any sense of his lessons. He has to put it at their level. And that is what the founders of religion have done. Having gone beyond thought, having gone to that world beyond, they have come back to the level of thought and tried to give in clear terms, in simple terms, what the general masses, what the general public would understand. In contrast, Sri Aurobindo has constantly been giving, even when he's been trying to express in words. Words, of course, are finite. Words, therefore, they cannot fully express the infinite. But even through those words, he has created such a he has put such a power and strength in those words that he transports us to the world beyond thought through those very words. I mean, that is what the power of a mantra is. In fact, his entire prose is a mantra. So it has that mantric quality which transports us to that world, and that is what the founder of a religion does. Then the mother goes on to say, when we speak of Sri Aurobindo, there can be no question of a teaching, nor even of a revelation, but of an action from the Supreme. No religion can be founded on that. Sri Aurobindo has not given clear-cut teaching about what is to be done and what is not to be done. It's not even a revelation that in my moments of peak spiritual experience, some words were revealed to me by God. Here are those words, and this is therefore my scripture. He has not done any such thing. And therefore, it's not even a revelation in that sense, because the religions which have been established on that sort of a revelation then tend to get frozen in time. This was a revelation, it was revealed in this form, those words are therefore now frozen for all time to come. But that is not what Sri Aurobindo has done. What he represents is an action from the Supreme. An action of the type that the avatars have always been engaging themselves in the world. Whenever the time has been ripe for ascending to a new level of evolution, then the avatars have stepped in for action in the world. But then they don't end up founding religions. Rama didn't found a new religion. Krishna didn't found a religion. And Sri Aurobindo also did not found a religion. So he represents an action direct from the Supreme. And no religion can be founded on that. But then the mother goes on further to say what men are likely to do, what men generally end up doing because of their limitations, because of human limitations. But men are so foolish that they can change anything into a religion. So great is their need of a fixed framework for their narrow thought and limited action. They want something very clear-cut, they want something fixed, and therefore they have a tendency to convert everything into a religion. Which means that it could happen even to Sri Aurobindo's teachings. That is the fear and apprehension she is expressing, that can happen. They do not feel secure unless they can assert this is true and that is not. But such an assertion becomes impossible for anyone who has read and understood what Sri Aurobindo has written. Now, in this again, the last part is very significant. People have this tendency to convert everything into a religion, and that is because they want something clear-cut, they want something in black and white, and they do not feel secure unless they can assert that this is true and that is not. But such an assertion becomes impossible for anyone who has read and understood what Sri Aurobindo has written. Now that becomes the condition, not an easy condition to fulfill. reading Sri Aurobindo and understanding what he has said. If that is done, then nobody will fall in that trap. Nobody will feel the need to have a fixed framework. One will not feel insecure without that framework. One would still feel secure in spite of that framework lacking in Sri Aurobindo's teachings. The next passage is related, your belief and others' beliefs. And in this one, the mother says, to think that your knowledge is the only true one, that your belief is the only true one, and that others' beliefs are not true, is to do precisely what is done by all sects and religions. The contact which you have had with the truth of things, your personal contact, a contact which is more or less clear, profound, vast, pure, may have given you as an individual an interesting, perhaps even a decisive experience. But although this contact may have given you an experience of decisive importance, you must not imagine that it is a universal experience and that the same contact would give others the same experience. And if you understand this, that it is something purely personal, individual, subjective, that it is not at all an absolute and general law, then you can no longer despise the knowledge of others, nor seek to impose your own point of view and experience upon them. This understanding obviates all mental quarrels, which are always totally useless. A great lesson in tolerance, particularly religious tolerance. What the mother is trying to emphasize here is that we have a tendency to feel that our belief is the only true belief, or at least the truest of beliefs, and that if something has helped us on our path, it would help everybody else too. Which means we try to extrapolate our own experiences to everybody else. If something has been helpful to us, it would help others as well. And so fanatic we get about it, so enthusiastic we get, of course, a well-meaning enthusiasm, well-intentioned enthusiasm. We feel that if something has helped us, it would help others also, and therefore why not let others also be familiar with it? Let us go and tell others what has happened to us and what has helped us. It's well-meaning, well-intentioned, but all the same, not necessarily right, because what we have to understand is that what has helped us may not necessarily help everybody else. There can be individual variations. Different paths may suit different people. I mean, as we have in our one of our most respected scriptures, the Gita, one can make a beginning with the knowledge or action or devotion. So that flexibility is there, and Sri Aurobindo has further expanded it to make it even more general. But that freedom to be able to choose your own path and find your own way of reaching the experiences, as well as making spiritual progress, is something which is undeniable. I mean, that individuality is something which is a part of the spiritual quest. And therefore, what the mother is trying to say is that we should always desist from trying to impose our point of view, our path, our way of doing things, or trying to convince others that since something has helped us, it is bound to help them also. So that is what the mother is trying to discourage. Something similar Sri Aurobindo has said on the very first page of the essays on the Gita. And I'll read out a few sentences from there. To these, the many minds of a half-ripe knowledge or no knowledge at all attach themselves with exclusiveness and passion. To these, here these refers to scriptures. He's talking about scriptures of different types, different religions. To these, the many minds of a half-ripe knowledge or no knowledge at all attach themselves with exclusiveness and passion, and will have it that this or the other book is alone the eternal word of God, and all others are either impostures or at best imperfectly inspired, that this or that philosophy is the last word of the reasoning intellect, and the other systems are either errors or saved only by such partial truth in them as links them to the one true philosophical cult. So what he's saying is, what attitude is commonly taken towards the scriptures? To the scriptures, many minds attach themselves with exclusiveness and passion. Exclusiveness, considering that alone to be the true scripture, and passion, that is with a great deal of emotion attached to it. And what is the characteristic of such people who attach themselves with exclusiveness and passion? With half-ripe knowledge or no knowledge at all. It means that they feel entitled to this sort of passion and definitive opinion in the absence of adequate knowledge to back it up. And what do they believe? They believe that this or the other book, the book that they believe in, is alone the eternal word of God, and all others are either impostures, fakes, or at best imperfectly inspired, that this or that philosophy is the last word of the reasoning intellect, and other systems are either errors or, this is the maximum concession that they are ready to make, or saved only by such partial truth in them as links them to the one true philosophical cult. Which means that there is something in common between what the other scriptures are saying and the one to which they are attached. And it is this common feature that links the two is what is right and the rest is not right. So either they are erroneous, the other scriptures, or they are saved. Their saving feature only is they saved only by such partial truth in them as links them to the one true philosophical cult. So this is a common approach. And then he goes on to say that fortunately in the current civilization, we have become more tolerant to other points of view. We may stick to our point of view with a great deal of passion, and we may be very enthusiastic in advocating it. We even feel hurt if somebody does not listen to us. We feel that, well, I'm telling him for his own good and still he's not listening. We may feel all that, but at least we don't go and murder people because of that. So we have improved quite a bit. We are, in that sense, more tolerant. We don't give expression to our feelings through the type of physical violence which has taken place in the past. But in spite of that, some of these basic things continue, and that's after pointing out, the improvements that have been made in the recent last century or two, the current civilization, which has become more tolerant, and we try to at least feel that such a disagreement does not call for physical violence. Then he says, but we are still apt to declare that our truth gives us the supreme knowledge, which other religions or philosophies have missed, are only imperfectly grasped, so that they deal with subsidiary and inferior aspects of the truth of things, or can merely prepare less evolved minds for the heights to which we have arrived. So either we say that they contain only a partial truth, or we say that, well, it has truth which has been put in a simplified form, or in a or some inferior aspect of the truth has been given, because these other scriptures or other philosophies are meant for less evolved minds who would not be able to grasp anyway the heights to which we have arrived. So this is a sort of a condescending or patronizing attitude towards others. So we may take that, although we may not resort to physical violence. And we are still prone to force upon ourselves or others the whole sacred mass of the book or gospel we admire, insisting that all shall be accepted as eternally valid truth, and no iota or underline or diaresis denied its part of the plenary inspiration. And we are still likely to force upon ourselves or others. Forcing it upon ourselves is also equally wrong in a way, because what is the ultimate sort of test to which a spiritual seeker puts all spiritual teaching that he has got? The ultimate test is he tries to experience it himself, which means that he should not impose it even upon himself, that this is the last word. Leave aside imposing it on others. And we are still prone to force upon ourselves or others. Sri Aurobindo is extremely thorough, as you'll see. Even upon ourselves, we should not impose it. And why? And we are still prone to force upon ourselves or others the whole sacred mass of the book, the whole of it, every bit of it, every word in it. Or gospel we admire, insisting that all shall be accepted as eternally valid truth, that the entire thing in totality is the valid truth, which means everything in it is true and nothing outside it is true. All shall be accepted as eternally valid truth, and no iota or underline or diaeresis is denied. Nothing can be denied from, not even a little bit. Not even something which has been just underlined. Even that underlining cannot be denied. Diaeresis, those two little dots which sometimes you find over the O in some of the European languages other than English. Even that cannot be taken away. Even that is a part of the truth. So, he's trying to just emphasize in his elegant literary style that we insist that nothing absolutely can be changed and everything is valid, and it's the totality of this scripture that constitutes the truth. So that is the type of passion and exclusiveness with which we attach to certain scriptures sometimes, and that nothing in this can be denied or altered. At this point, I might mention, another approach which Sri Ramakrishna took in his own way to bring out this fact that you cannot have just one exclusive path and one exclusive way of doing things. He, as you know, was a great devotee of the Kali to start with. And he gave up everything for the sake of that devotion, and in the hope that one day the Kali will reveal herself to him. And finally, when that didn't really happen, what he did was he picked up a sword and dagger, and he said, well, I have given up everything that I had except this life. If you want, I am ready to give up even my life, but you must reveal yourself to me. And it was that point that she revealed herself to him. But then he didn't stop there. Having got the Sakshatkar of Kali, he felt that, well, there are other paths and other avatars, and they had their devotees who have been devoted to them in a different way. So let me try. And he said, well, the epitome of devotion in amongst our epics and scriptures is Hanuman. He was devoted to Rama. So he said, well, let me try to become Hanuman and see whether I also get the Sakshatkar of Rama in the same way. And what he did was, I should become completely as much like Hanuman as possible. And he started living on a tree, like the monkeys. And true enough, he got the Sakshatkar of Rama also. He realized Rama. Then he said, well, why not Krishna? Radha was totally devoted to him. Let me become Radha. He started dressing up like a woman, and he started feeling that he is Radha, and he got the Sakshatkar of Krishna also. And then finally came, of course, he went through some other experiences also, but the anticlimax was when somebody who believed in a formless God came and told him, all this is illusion. You imagine that you will see Rama or Krishna or Kali in a particular form, and you get so passionate about it, and that's why it appears. So it's in your own imagination that you see them. True God is formless, and that is what you should go after. Totapuri. He came and he told him how to reach the formless God, how to visualize the formless God. And once again, within a short period, he was in that samadhi when he was visualizing the formless God, and it took Totapuri 3 days to bring him out of that samadhi. He started feeling scared, maybe he will never come out of this samadhi. So this is again something which Sri Ramakrishna is well known for, and Sri Aurobindo has said at one place that when he talks of integral yoga, when Sri Aurobindo talks of integral yoga, he's not talking of the successive practice of different types of yoga the way Sri Ramakrishna had done. Because he says there can't be many Ramakrishnas. There are not many who will be able to do that anyway. And therefore, when he's talking of integral yoga, he's not talking of the successive practice of different types of yoga. What he's talking about is seizing on the central principles of all the major traditional schools of yoga and working out a synthesis which takes into account the essence of each of them, without paying much importance to the superficial or external features of any of them. So that is what integral yoga is. And that is what a true synthesis of yoga, of different schools of yoga would be. So that is another way in which this invalidity of an exclusive approach has been shown by a person like by Sri Ramakrishna. So this is something which we have to. This is what comes out from these two passages, and maybe I think what I can do is read both these passages once more, and then read a little from this book, which is on the same lines. You only have to read all that Sri Aurobindo has written to know what it is. Sorry. You only have to read all that Sri Aurobindo has written to know that it is impossible to base a religion on his works, because he presents each problem, each question in all its aspects, showing the truth contained in each way of seeing things. And he explains that in order to attain the truth, you must realize a synthesis which goes beyond all mental notions and emerge into a transcendence beyond thought. When we speak of Sri Aurobindo, there can be no question of a teaching or even a revelation, but of an action from the Supreme. No religion can be founded on that. But men are so foolish that they can change anything into a religion. So great is their need of a fixed framework for their narrow thought and limited action. They do not feel secure unless they can assert this is true and that is not. But such an assertion becomes impossible for anyone who has read and understood what Sri Aurobindo has written. To think that your knowledge is the only true one, that your belief is the only true one, and that others' beliefs are not true, is to do precisely what is done by all sects and religions. The contact which you have had with the truth of things, your personal contact, a contact which is more or less clear, profound, vast, pure, may have given you as an individual an interesting, perhaps even a decisive experience. But although this contact may have given you an experience of decisive importance, you must not imagine that it is a universal experience and that the same contact would give others the same experience. And if you understand this, that it is something purely personal, individual, subjective, that it is not at all an absolute and general law, then you can no longer despise the knowledge of others, nor seek to impose your own point of view and experience upon them. This understanding obviates all mental quarrels, which are always totally useless. Now, this is a small little passage that I'll read from a pamphlet that Sri Aurobindo had prepared in 1934. Sri Aurobindo's teachings and Sri Aurobindo ashrams, something like this. The teaching of Sri Aurobindo and Sri Aurobindo's ashram. He himself had prepared this pamphlet. And because the title was Sri Aurobindo's teachings and Sri Aurobindo ashram, he has talked about himself in third person. Although he himself is the writer, he has referred to himself in this fashion. He says, it is not his object. His refers to Sri Aurobindo. It is not Sri Aurobindo's object. But Sri Aurobindo himself is the author. It is not his object to develop any one religion, or to amalgamate the older religions, or to found any new religion. Once again, extremely thorough. He leaves no possibility untouched. He doesn't just say that I do not want to found any new religion. He says, it is not his object to develop any one religion. Out of all the existing religions, he is not trying to develop one sort of as a comparison with the others or in favor of the others. It is not his object to develop any one religion. So many already exist. He could have favored one and developed it. That's not what he's trying to do. It's not his object to develop any one religion or to amalgamate the older religions. Means trying to put them together, work out some sort of a combination or synthesis. That's also not something that he wants to do. Or to found any new religion. So all these three things he doesn't want to do. It is not his object to develop any one religion, or to amalgamate the older religions, or to found any new religion. For any of these things would lead away from his central purpose. The one aim of his yoga is an inner self-development, by which each one who follows it can in time discover the one self in all and evolve a higher consciousness than the mental, a spiritual and supramental consciousness, which will transform and divinize human nature. Then, after saying what he does not want to do, he has said what he wants to do and what his aim is. The one aim of his yoga is an inner self-development. This is one of his central theses throughout. An inner change, an inner development, an inner transformation that expresses itself in outer life. It's an inner self-development by which each one who follows it can in time discover the one self, both in capital, the one O capital and S capital, discover the one self in all, the one self which is universal, all pervasive, discover the one self in all and evolve a higher consciousness than the mental. Means rise to a level of consciousness higher than the mental. And what is the consciousness higher than the mental? A spiritual and supramental consciousness. Literally, all consciousness above the mental is supramental. But again, as we know, Sri Aurobindo has defined the different rungs of the consciousness above the mental, above the ordinary mental, the higher mind, the illumined mind, the intuitive mind, the over mind, and then the super mind. But the aim of this yoga is that the seeker should be able to develop a consciousness higher than the mental, which he has sort of summarized here as a spiritual and supramental consciousness. And probably most traditional yogas would at the most stop here, maybe even short of that. But then his sentence doesn't stop here, and these last few words themselves make all the difference. Evolve a higher consciousness than the mental, a spiritual and supramental consciousness, which will transform and divinize human nature. Which means that he doesn't want to stop with the individual having achieved a spiritual and supramental consciousness, but which in turn will contribute to the transformation and divinization of the human race. The human nature as such, which means the type of tendencies with which we identify the human race, those tendencies will themselves undergo a transformation, a divinization. So these last few words are in a way the crux of Sri Aurobindo's yoga and how it goes beyond the traditional yogas. So the one aim of his yoga is an inner self-development by which each one who follows it can in time discover the one self in all and evolve a higher consciousness than the mental, a spiritual and supramental consciousness which will transform and divinize human nature. So here he has given very clearly, in his own words, what the object of his yoga is, and again said very clearly that he neither wants to found a new religion, nor develop any of the existing religions, nor work out some sort of an amalgam of many religions.